Great. So we'll get right to it. Just to give
Yep,
folks a
go
little context. We discussed this about 3 weeks ago in Finance Committee on overtime for management level employees in the police department. Carrie, our HR director, and myself, and leadership in the police department have been working on it. My initial conclusion was that it's not in the ordinance for exempt employees to receive overtime. It has been kind of a past practice, I'd say, for the last 2 to 5 years. Wasn't one that was considered pretty widespread in my conversations with the former city managers and deputy city managers overseeing this kind of process. So we've kind of continued as a past practice recently. We had some kind of conversations last week. I think Troy and I talked to the chief that there are some pretty unique circumstances, especially this year, that we've had some leaves that's going to happen. We've had some turnover, so there's a lot of overtime coming out, and this is an ability for the management staff to sort of take shifts without having to really force the non-management staff to have to take as many shifts. It does create, I think, some fairness issues across other exempt employee management pieces, which we talked about last time around, which is when you take the management role, you sort of leave the overtime piece. Also, in talking to our legal counsel, advised against this because when the people distributing the overtime also get the overtime, it can create some issues between management and non-management. We also talked to a police expert that we've used in the past for some guidance who made a similar sentiment. So that's kind of where I landed. And but I also understand the police department, also the fire department doesn't use this practice. Their management employees for that side of public safety doesn't offer overtime there. But the police is a very unique situation. So I think we kind of came to the idea that we'd keep going with this policy, to your point last time, Steve, which was maybe this isn't all at once, that we sunset this at the end of the year. But want to have a more robust conversation. Brought the chief and some other members. Steve, you had a bunch of good questions that you emailed in that the chief and his team can reference. Hey, Pat.
Sorry, I was late.
It's Monday morning after a vacation, we get it.
And like a lot of these things, we'll kind of iterate and see if we want to think about this as a sunsetting after this budget cycle, or if not, if the council wants to modify our personnel ordinance, we can to allow police exempt employees explicitly. That way, Carrie and HR and myself don't feel like we're kind of letting through past handshake practice, and we actually put it into the ordinance so that it's explicit that the police department's allowed to have exempt employees take overtime. So with that, I'll send it over to the chief.
Yeah, please.
Probably to the podium, yeah.
All right, so, yeah, this has been going on for a little bit. First, some of the questions that Steve had sent out, I guess we can address those. The first one right off the bat, I guess, is, has this gone on forever? I mean, Charlie just said the last 2 to 5 years. This has gone on ever since I've worked here. I would say for 35 years. It's usually used as a tool for us to be able to fill in when somebody's out sick, extended vacation. What we have coming up, we have three employees going out on paternity leave, pretty much same time. We're 4 people short. We only have 4 dispatchers. So these practices they're not used for any of us to make all this extra money. It's used for us to be able to give those guys a hand, not force people. We turn around and force somebody every time they have a day off or a day they, we're planning on doing something with family. We risk retention issues, which you pay one of us an overtime rate, which, amounts to maybe $18 more than we would if we filled somebody else in. Then somebody ends up getting done because they're working all the time. We're talking about, upwards of $50,000 to $100,000 to fill that position when you could be paying one of us a little extra. So that's, you know, that's pretty much how we, why that's used, why we've always used it, why it's always been used. We have a lot of people in the pipeline to be hired, but those people aren't gonna be on the road for at least probably 8 months to a year from now. We have the extra dispatch position that you guys gave us. It's gonna start in January. We're gonna be advertising for that. So that should alleviate some of the dispatch overtime. So I think there is a future ahead where you wouldn't see us covering anything anyway. There's always some extreme circumstances we can't predict when people are gonna come and go. So, you know, I know there's been some questions about the union, how the employees feel about it, and Rob Angelo, who is the representative shop steward for the unions here, if you have any questions on how the guys feel about us filling in for them when need be. So one of the questions Steve says, department's so slim that there are no other options. I mean, the simple answer to that, at some days, some weeks, yes. We are down, like I said, 4 people. We have somebody in the academy, we have somebody training. We just did interviews for 9 people last week for 2 other positions. We're in the process of vetting them and getting them through the rest of our hiring process. But they're not gonna be ready to go until the end of the summer at the quickest. So are we taking this for money or for helping out? We're doing it for helping out. That's the main reason why we're doing it. If, like I said before, if we have somebody in the union that is constantly forced, I mean, we have some people that don't need to be working there, they like working there, but if they're gonna be forced and be away from their family, they're gonna move on. It's gonna cost the city a lot more, and it's gonna put us in more of a hardship. So, and like I said, this has been going on ever since I worked there. I don't feel like it's ever been abused. I don't think it will be abused. We rewrote our job descriptions, and we actually, when the deputy chief and I went over these, made it stricter for us. So when we come into work, in our job description, if I have to come in early for something like this, or stay over for a council meeting, or come in for a parade, or an officer-involved shooting, or a bad car accident, we do not take pay for that. That's part of our job description. And these guys that work, like Dave, I don't work any patrol, but Dave or Sean, if they work patrol, that's outside their job description. It's totally different than what their job description is. If I fill in for dispatches, not my job description, it's an extra detail. So we're definitely not taking overtime for stuff that we're not getting paid for, so. You have any questions? I guess what we're asking for is we can just leave it, if we can just, I don't know about any ordinance, why an ordinance would cover what Charlie was saying, if it needs to be something in writing in the city that makes it better for when we're not here, so this doesn't come up again, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I'd say from the, right now, there's nothing to allow exempt employees to allow for overtime. I think Carrie especially and myself kind of feel like we're in a handshake deal arrangement where we're kind of continuing a past practice. And I'd note, that's my conversations before on the overtime being allowed. I don't know if it was different. There wasn't as much overtime being paid previously, or the arrangements of the staffing was different. But yeah, the previous city manager and deputy I talked to said this really didn't happen prior. Also, we do have 3 management personnel in the police department now, a chief, a deputy chief, and a captain. So that's somewhat of a new arrangement. Those are all over 6-figure employees. The vast majority of our 6-figure employees in city government are in the police department. We're looking at pretty substantial overtimes already. This is one of our biggest cost centers. So I want to, if we're going to keep doing this policy, we could either go to the route the chief and I talked about prior to this conversation, which was we can sunset or look to sunset at the end of the year and budget accordingly for the next year. Or we can bake it into a policy of exempt employees. We could do just police. We could do public safety in general. Like I said, the fire department currently doesn't do this and hasn't had a practice of this. Obviously, a very different piece, but it would be our other kind of public safety side where, what if the fire chief is trying to give a little bit of extra time, has some issues with, some sick leave or military leave and doesn't want to force people to come in for shifts. Should we let the fire chief or the deputy fire chief or their kind of management exempt staff also do this piece as well? I've heard from many employees outside of the police department, as we've been talking about this, where they do have big fairness issues. There's a fair amount of people in management that are putting in incredible amounts of overtime, and, are not compensated for it. So, those are the things to keep in mind, I feel like, as we move forward here. But that's really what I'm looking for clarity from the council is, do we want to make this an established practice as opposed to a past practice, undefined? And if so, happy to do it. And that's kind of my general orientation, is let's sunset this at the end of the year, and move towards formalizing an ordinance.
So I would just like to say just a couple of things as far as budget goes. This is already coming out of our overtime budget. This isn't an extra item. This isn't something if you decided that this was something that we're gonna put in, this isn't an extra budget item. This is coming out of the regular overtime budget. And the other thing that was brought up here was fairness. Somebody doesn't get to do something. I know in the past, there's been employees that have had some stipends put in their paycheck to compensate for these type of things. Stipend, overtime, call it what you want, it's extra money. We're not like other departments in the fact that if somebody calls out sick, if somebody takes vacation, we need to fill that shift. People don't realize that when we have a full shift, we have 3 people on. We're upwards of almost 10,000 complaints this year. We cannot run short, and we can't burn our people out. That's the bottom line. So, and this has gone on. So we had gotten some pay slips from the former Chief DeLeo showing that he paid his lieutenant overtime for parades and anything he did extra. We took all that out, so that this has gone on long past when we were here. So we're just asking for us to be able to, and for me as the police chief, to have the option to be able to cover these shifts, and that the guys that do it get compensated.
I'd note that was one of the other things we talked about. I don't know, did DeLeo also take overtime, or was it just his deputy?
I don't.
No, DeLeo did not take overtime, but DeLeo didn't dispatch. Troy is not taking overtime on the road, he's just filling. And the communication center is a completely separate department in budget. So, I think it's important to know that, some of the things that, Charlie has been told, that they're just not accurate. We have the facts. And Harold Page was a non-exempt employee. He was a lieutenant, the number 2 person of the department. And when Pete Bickmore was here, there actually were 3 non-union people. There was a police chief, a captain, and a lieutenant. So we have had 3 people that were non-union in our agency leading it for quite some time. And then things changed when Pete Bickmore got done, Glenn took over, and then took over as city manager. So there were some changes there. We're back to what we had when Pete Bickmore was here with 3 non-union people. And those people, the captain and lieutenant at the time, were non-exempt employees. Captain Lord and myself, in our job descriptions, when we took our promotions, it was listed what we could work for overtime. And it was a pretty general statement, what we could work for overtime. We've actually tightened that up so that it's not costing the city a bunch of money. We take phone calls routinely at night, come in on the weekends for death investigations, major car accidents, protests all summer long. We're not taking any overtime. That's all in our job description. What we're looking for is just to continue the compensation for when we're actually suiting up, getting in a patrol car, and going from call to call to call. And trying to basically keep this ship running, because 4 people short is a huge, huge problem. You've heard me, some of you have been on the council, you've heard me preach about it before. We've got to do something. There's a lot of people retiring in the 5 years. Right now, we hired a girl back in October. We're gonna have about $96,000 tied up in her by the time she graduates the academy next June. There's a lot of money involved in hiring these people, vetting them, outfitting them, and when we can't step in there to help out, I think we're not doing the city justice. It's costing us more money in the long run. Thank you.
I just want to, Tabby, I know you need to leave. Is there anything you wanted to hit on?
I don't think so.
I didn't hear what you said. Were you talking to
Oh.
me?
No,
Sorry.
Arbor Commissioner.
Tabby has to leave, and that's why
I'm juggling.
we bumped you up, so. I can't not say that if she's hired as a police officer, she's probably a young woman and not a girl. And I thought I could let it go, but I couldn't. I just need to. I know. I just needed to.
Go ahead.
You're all set.
I don't think I have any questions yet.
I just wanted to just say something,
Yeah.
I had said it before.
If you'd come to the podium, thank
From the
you.
patrol point of view, from the officer's point of view, people had mentioned the fairness. All the details that we're discussing comes through patrol first. So they would never take a detail that a patrol officer hasn't not only been offered, but denied and said, I don't want to work this. That's the only details they're getting. So it's not like an administrator is going to say, I'm going to make this detail and then I'm going to work it. That's ours, unless we don't want to work it. If they start taking our details, I'll let you know. Other than that, trying to think, and details are given out through a system that's almost, it's computerized at this point. So there's really no, side sliding details or anything.
You worked in Bangor, correct?
Yes, I did.
And this is one of the things again, I talked to an outside police expert that works with a lot of folks, but haven't done the full research on all the other departments in the area on if they do this practice, but does Bangor do this
They
practice?
do, straight through lieutenants do. I'm not sure about the deputy and chief. I believe the deputy chief does. I'm not sure about the chief. But on the flip side of that, I do know the chief had come in and stepped in and worked Christmas, some holidays where, you're gonna force an officer with a family to come in, the chief would come in and work a detail. I don't know what the compensation for that was on that level, but all the lieutenants right on up to the chief definitely got paid overtime. Yeah. So, I didn't know if you had any questions for the patrol point of view or from our point of view. It is helpful for us. We are getting forced. There's guys that are working, some of 60, 70, 80 hours a week during the summer, 90 hours a week. It's a lot. And for somebody to just step in and say, take that detail for us so we don't get forced is nice.
Yeah, this one I have trouble with because I've worked those, and I know a lot of people are doing those, at tons of hours coming on Saturdays. We have a big thing we're doing this weekend for the Christmas lighting. So now I know police is different, but there's, a huge amount of employees that are putting in way more than 40 in the management category, and we kind of set salaries for that. To me, that's a big part of, especially all three of these salaries are over 6 figures. So that's, it's, to me, it's, if we're gonna do it, we need to bake it into the ordinance. We're already paying the $373,900 in overtime funds for the police department. Believe that's our biggest one. Fire is usually pretty close. So are we gonna also apply this to fire department and just keep it to public safety alone exempt? It's also the biggest. I don't become very popular when I talk about these things. I know in the police and fire department when I did the analysis early last year before the budget season on, hey, they had the year before I arrived, there was a 17% increase in government spending. And, we worked really hard to kind of curb that. What's driving that? What's the 5-year change in spending in the city of Ellsworth? And the vast majority was police, fire, dispatch. Obviously, the addition of the new police station was a big part of that, and the staffing increases. By far, the police and fire have had the largest staffing increases over the last 5 or 6 years. So that is where the largest cost overruns are. I shouldn't say cost overruns, cost increases. I should also note that my talking about these pieces is I think we have a small police department and fire department, or closer to right size. I recently am doing an analysis on every city and town that's kind of the 15 comp departments like ours, and our police departments and fire departments are, are comparable size-wise for some of those other cities and towns. So, especially, we have some unique growth pressures in Ellsworth, especially in the summertime, that talking about the costs here is not that, I don't think that they need more people or more resources, but that these resources are some of our most expensive. We added 4 additional public safety officers in the last budget cycle, and then we did a union increase with the police department. Steve, I know you were a part of that. You add those 4 public safety officers plus the full extent of those union increases over a 3-year time frame, and we're looking at close to like $800,000 additional per year funding for our public safety departments, maybe even closer to $1 million additional per year than we were last year. So these will continue to have pretty substantial effects on our tax rate. Now, this piece alone is not going to be the breaker, as any piece is not going to be, but it's something I think we need to keep in mind too.
It seems to me that, I have 2 thoughts. One is where we draw the line between the finance committee conversation, and then if, excuse me, if we're talking about a policy change, at what point is this going to be incorporated into the next budget conversations? But looking at the finance end of it, the other piece that comes up is if we've got officers working 90 hours a week, I have safety concerns for their health and safety, as well as the others that are around them. That's an awful lot of time in a week for a stressful job.
Yeah, I've got a on that. We had one officer who I think worked over 100 hours a week. Like, there are no rules on that though, right? On how many total hours. So,
So just gonna, like I said, that feels like not a finance issue, but.
18 hours straight, and you have to have 6 hours off.
But if you're doing that day after day after day, that's not sustainable and may not be safe for the
No,
officer doing
I
it.
would say that we did not, Charlie had mentioned that about 4 new officers. Well, we actually got 1 new officer and 1 new dispatcher in addition. We're just backfilling. We got authorized to
Right.
backfill. So if you really want to cut the overtime down, if the overtime is what the city is worried about, the next budget session when we come to the council, maybe give us 7 or 8 guys.
What I heard was, next budget cycle, those 4 that are in the works will be on board.
Right, but those were backfilling positions with
Wow.
people that left. People that were already working here.
Yeah.
That took jobs or left for what other
Right.
reasons.
Those are positions that are already authorized, just backfilling vacancies.
Well, they were,
No,
they were new hires.
these were 4 additional public safety. It was two fire, 1 dispatch,
Oh, yeah,
and
well,
1
I don't,
police.
I don't know about fire department. That's, when you lump public safety into fire department, that really doesn't.
But just to be clear, it was an addition of 1 officer and 1 dispatcher.
Correct.
New,
That's
not a
correct.
that's not a backfill. It was 1 dispatcher, 1 police officer, and 2 fire department personnel.
And I understand the overtime, I really do. I missed a lot of Christmases, holidays, Easters, because people want bare paved roads, especially on the interstate. I plowed snow for a long time for the state. And if it wasn't for the police officers being out there, state troopers and local police in certain places to backfill. As far as putting anything in writing, far as having management supervisors getting any pay, that should be kind of like put in through HR, so it's in writing and agreed upon. What you and the deputy chief should do is try to forecast projected possible, what might be the overtime worst-case scenario, so that when it comes to finance, for the pay and your cover, to have, so that you're not, obviously, you're trained just like patrol officer. You know that job, right down through. So it's, basically in the military, we called it commander's intent. You know the intent, you know what the lowest person knows. And they know that you're gonna be out there just in case, there's a death in the family of one of your officers, or illness, catastrophic illness or something like that, you guys really are out there caring for them. That's a twofold deal. That helps with your recruitment.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I would say.
They're not getting a picture of you like you're just sitting there in your office behind the desk, you know? Leading from the front. That has a lot to do with recruiting people to stay. Unfortunately, the city's gotten away from having reserve officers, which are basically on-call, part-time, you know. And some of that has to, and it's both the police and the fire department, okay? Some of that has to do with the union. I don't think the union would really mind if there was a few part-time officers as a reserve to help back up. There's, you know, like I said, I've seen it come and go. As long as they follow along with pretty much the guidance of that, the agreements that you have with the unions. You see what I mean?
Yeah, we don't have reserve officers, quite frankly, because the cost to have a reserve officer and train a reserve officer is the exact same as a full-time officer. It's not.
Oh, yeah,
It doesn't work anymore.
No.
It doesn't work for us anymore.
And it's kind of tough to find somebody that's, you know, thinking about retiring, going out there, and it's kind of nasty with some of these events that you guys have to go through, so.
Yeah, I should note that, you know, this isn't, recruitment's a big challenge. We're working on
Yeah.
that with the police. We're trying all kinds of ideas to try to get more people in the pipeline. Chief and I
Oh.
are talking about, you know, whenever we have some of these unexpected, they're kind of running at exactly the levels. Does it make sense to go maybe an additional FTE over, just knowing that we're going to have to plan some churn? That people might retire, people might do a transfer, people might go somewhere else, because we're never really quite at that level, and that, I think, triggers a lot of this overtime.
No, I would say one thing you mentioned, forecast what's coming. I can tell you, like I mentioned earlier, we're 4 people down right now. We have 3 people going out on paternity leave, which is FMLA, that we have no control over.
Yeah.
So they can be gone 12 weeks. We have a worst-case scenario coming for us for the next few months. And all I'm asking is that we're allowed to be able to use our people, including myself, my 2 administrative staff, to help these guys out when possible. That's-
Corey Bagley, I'm current detective with Ellsworth. Speaking as an employee who, for over the past year, has been alone in the detective division and had a lot of cases such as sexual assaults and embezzlements and burglaries and such that we have to investigate, which requires a lot of paperwork. I don't necessarily need to work the patrol shift to generate extra paperwork for myself, but that was kind of the case over the last year or so, is because we were short-staffed. We were getting to the point where I was being forced to work shifts. I was fortunate enough to have Captain Lord actually take several of those for me, so I didn't have to be compelled to work. I just see that as if you're not allowing these guys to be able to fill in when we need them to, not taking shifts away from the employees, because they're not doing that. What they're doing is supplementing us, so we're not getting that extra stuff that we don't need, okay? And I didn't need any more extra paperwork during the course of that year. So I was fortunate to have those guys step up and help me out with that. I think that's important to know. Not to mention the past practice, this has been going on for quite some time, the way that they explained, and they have the paperwork to show that those positions were being paid for that. I just think that's important to remember as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know past practice is operative in a union area, but in the management, it's a little different. Steve, you've been quiet. I don't know.
That's because I plan to talk a lot.
Great.
First of all, when this came up last, I think it was our last finance
It's probably
meeting,
2 or 3 there.
I had made this statement that number one, if it's going on, maybe a salary needs to be adjusted so that they could pick up some slack in the everyday schedule. I had mentioned that, if you're salary, you're salary. And if you're hourly, you're hourly. I don't like crossing those lines, but at the same time, that was my comment then, and I wanted to hear from everybody that's affected by this. And I have to tell you that after hearing this, I think my position has changed, and here's why. I don't like this salary and hourly pay. That haunts me. However, I think that, first of all, when I got here 4 years ago, I started asking for all employee earnings. And for the last 4 years, the top earner has been a police officer. And he's also the gentleman that has worked the most overtime. And I made it a point to go find him and shake his hand, probably 3 of the 4 years, and compliment him for his work, because the guy working the most was earning the most. And my understanding from talking to him is that he is a catch-all. After it goes down through the roster, he told me that when he became a dad, they decided that mom was going to stay home, he was going to be the bread earner. So he signs up as a default, a catch-all. When it's gone down through the system, he is an automatic go-to guy, and correct me if I'm wrong here. And I'd like to again compliment him, because I think that one person is working the most and earning the most. And I think overtime for employees is where their money is. And I think the other side of that is when you're paying somebody overtime, you're not paying somebody additional benefits. Those benefits stay the same. And the overtime comes forward in their earnings. And I've gotten everybody's earnings, and from what I'm hearing today, the earnings that I'm seeing from management has included overtime. Fair? When you have taken overtime. So I think that we have a police department that is really, really rocking what's going on in the police world. I also think that we're in a time that when I was younger, overtime was the answer. That was what it was all about. Now I think we have a younger workforce that is balanced between life and work. You have male officers going to female appointments when they're expecting a child. I think that's common throughout every industry today. So I think it's a different world. And I think that the wages are up, so they don't have to do as much overtime, so they can do some family things. And I think we need to remember that. I think perhaps there needs to be, it sounds to me like we have management filling in the interest of retention of officers. We don't have management filling in the interest of stealing overtime from officers. We have management trying to make their life better, and retention is always less expensive than recruitment. Doesn't matter if it's a police work or any other place. Retention is always less expensive than recruitment. I think from what I'm hearing, I don't like this to go throughout the city of anyone that's salary can become an overtime situation. I don't think that's fair. But I do think that 24-hour departments need to have an exemption to that. Because 24-hour departments are different than regular departments. And from what I'm hearing and the research that I have done since last time we talked about this, retention, police officers in the last 10 years have become mental health counselors. And they're dealing with so much more than the normal thing. And I think perhaps a balance to this, and by the way, I had suggested not changing anything until a new budget, if anything was changed, but maybe a balance to this would be offer an exemption for a 24-hour department.
Yeah, that could get to the fairness issue across the board here. I might take issue with who puts in the most hours in city government, but I think as anybody knows, I also put in an incredible amount of hours into this job.
But you're not wearing a gun and getting shot.
No,
Climb up a ladder,
that's true.
poke a hole in the roof.
I'd also note that, and to your point on the 24-hour piece, we do, Brian Moon, and we're going to talk later today in our, about backfilling a position in the highway department. He put in an insane amount of snow hours last year as a manager and didn't get paid for those pieces. He actually went from a union employee to a manager piece. So if there is, but then we'll have to start budgeting for that as well.
Can I suggest, I'm looking at the clock, we're into policy, which,
Yeah.
what are the next steps for
Well,
us
here-
to bring to the council or for the council to deal with?
Hearing this conversation, I'd say, it seems like we're going away from the sunsetting this policy at the end of next year, which was sort of generally what we discussed afterwards. So we'll have Carrie prep an option that'll formalize it. Again, that's our personnel ordinance is an ordinance. It's not a policy. So we'll create maybe a 24-hour, maybe we'll prep two options, but just public safety, just 24-hour pieces of city government that managers would be allowed to take, to your point, Pat, on when you're working road stuff. That had happened a lot as well. So that there's a little bit more fairness across the board. It would apply to the fire department. They don't utilize this piece as well. And we'll have Carrie prep an option. We'll bake it in the ordinance, and then we'll see what the rest of the council thinks about it.
I still want to keep alive my concern about 90 hours a week in police work. I have concerns about
The-
that.
Well, yeah, I have concerns about it too, and that's not just the police, but it's also the fire. And then the other thing is public works in the wintertime. But, when you face, like, we're talking about the police department's overtime. When you have people leave, or they're going out on FMLA, you're shorthanded, somebody's gonna have to make up the difference. But, it's like the deputy chief said, there's the 18-hour rule. When I worked for DOT, we had a 15-hour rule because we tried to follow the federal motor carriers rule, okay? So, but myself as a driver, I had the option, if somewhere's within past, coming up on that 15-hour mark, if I did not feel that I was capable, or somebody else suggested, man, you're not staying in your lane right, or whatever, you know what I mean? Or back in the break area, for what little breaks we did get, we'd all kind of police ourselves, and next thing you know, we'd call a supervisor.
Yeah.
You need to get somebody in here to take our place.
Yep,
So
we'll,
these for the next steps.
So, I mean, and that's by allowing that. All I'm saying is, if, in the budget process, so that when coming up, have a rough idea. If we don't use that little pot of gold, then that looks like a money savings deal, and we're good. I really hate to have somebody have to work and not get compensated for it, even though, yeah, and I realize, like with salary, if you're a supervisor, you're expected, your pay is based on 40 hours a week or 45 hours a week. It depends upon what you negotiated at. And when you got to go beyond that by 20 hours, that hurts your back pocket.
So, on that note, I'm still going to push to, we've got other items coming
Yeah.
up. This is not the end, this is the starting point. And we keep moving. Thank you for all that.
Before we move,
Yeah.
I'd like to just throw this out, that 24-hour departments have unions, and if a union thinks that there's an abuse, they're gonna come screaming, right and left. So you've already got a stop loss in this process here. And I really believe that the 24-hour departments need a second look about a balance of retention. Because if you have management abusing, you're gonna hear about it. And we're not hearing about that. We're hearing that you've got management taking positions to retain good people. Just want to end that.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm looking at like 17 minutes left. Thank you all for coming in. Appreciate the start to the conversation.
And Troy, we'll follow up with Carrie. Let's get a meet on the books with QB and Carrie. Okay, good. Can you invite her to that meeting? Can you invite Carrie to that meeting?
Thank you.
Next.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So with the rest of the agenda, Charlie, I'm not sure what you've got. For
Yeah, let me
citywide
just,
updates or
I'll
what
just, I'll
needs
rip
to
through,
happen.
we got a, I was at a solar event with Nexamp a couple months ago. Pretty big, sizable new taxpayer in the city. It's taking a place at a tree growth and putting a fairly new tax revenue generation in there. I noticed the event that they'd given some funding to our Chamber of Commerce, which is awesome, and we thought about them helping to sponsor the Christmas tree lighting. So we got a $1,000 donation from them to be. We're going to use it to do a power drop down there as opposed to stringing extension cords out. So kind of a powered by Nexamp for this Christmas tree for this year, and there might be a more long-term partnership to help sponsor events and community things, so we don't have to. We can kind of get some more Parks and Rec event funding, but not put it in the taxpayer. We don't have a policy on this. It's there's really no guidance. State law, you're allowed to take kind of private donations we'd probably like to do a little bigger than just $1,000 here or there, kind of, some general donations, especially with the track, could be naming rights, et cetera. So I may look to kind of formalize a new policy on this, just so the council knows that, we're not playing tit for tat here. There's a public, transparent process. Here's a donation received. Here's why, here are the conditions with it. So I'll probably be bringing forward something like that to formalize donations for events and projects for the city in the future. Also, bus storage, I know, I think it was one of the gentlemen, Roger Gilly, I believe, had some questions about that. We're looking into a bit more of that. We found a place just across the line in Hancock, like a 2-minute drive away from the bus station where the new county emergency management's going to be, and the owners of that facility have just kind of rehabbed an old mill building that was like a $6 million building in the early 2000s built. That would house all of our buses, could potentially house the water department as well, which is currently in the old Payless shoe store with a much bigger garage facility, and still come in maybe budget neutral. So to keep all of our buses inside, it's probably closer than to where they're at now. So that's a potential. I might be bringing that forward more in the budget cycle. And then I know I emailed to the council, but there's an interesting Ellsworth American story about kind of comparative tax rates for the city of Ellsworth, showing we're either the second or third lowest in terms of the tax amount as a percentage of the median income on the kind of bottom third of the mill rate. Other pieces, that's not the whole story. I feel like Ellsworth has some unique commercial and waterfront pieces that are large valuations that help, I think, keep the taxes down more than just being frugal with city spending. But also just good to know comparatively that other cities and towns in Maine were on the very low end of the tax spectrum. So encourage all of the folks here and the council to read that story, and that's it for me.
Cool, thank you. Next up, Nate, what you've got for general finance updates, and then I'm looking forward to the warrant process flowchart.
Yeah, absolutely. So just general updates. Tonight at the workshop, we'll be discussing the budget process. So looking forward to that tonight. Obviously, December 1st, so we're looking at reconciling November here, finishing it up. Like I said, timeline is to get that done by the 15th of the month. So we have a couple weeks for that. And then just one item that's on the agenda there, for those that are aware or are not aware, Superintendent Bowles was planning on being at the finance meeting on Thursday the 4th. Obviously with our changes of meetings on the Mondays, and her schedule is, according to her, is very tight on Mondays. So she is rescheduling and joining us on Monday the 22nd, just to go over general finance school updates. So I just want you guys to be aware that her previous meeting scheduled for the 4th, because of our change of timeline for the committees, should we come in on Monday the 22nd. So just want everyone to be aware of that. I believe everyone should have the flow chart that was created by the fabulous Leah in the finance department, but I'm going to put it on the screen as well, just so hopefully everyone can see it. If not, I have it in front of them. But this was created just for especially the new members who may not understand how the invoice warrant process works, and I won't go over line by line, but just to give you an idea of how it works, starts with an order or a quote, and you can see the price right now is set at $1,000. Anything over $1,000, we ask that a purchase order is created, and if it's under that, then it would just go, right to the department to complete that order with the vendor. And from there, it goes down. Invoice is either received by us or it's received by the department head directly. If it's received by the department head directly, they code, they put the proper account on there where it should be coded, and then they give that to the finance department. If the department head does not get it, but the finance department does, then we create the invoice in Cassell and send to them and have them look it over. And obviously at that point, they're required to let us know, okay, what account is that for? Let's just say it's for travel or training or whatever the case might be. Even if we look at it and we think we know what it is, we always ask that, I always ask the team to make sure to reach out to the department, have them code it to the proper account to make sure it's, like I said, the department head knows exactly what it is and it's in the right spot and what they anticipated. Scrolling down on my screen, where it says finance releases invoices to management for approval, that happens every Wednesday. So once Wednesday comes, all the invoices are in, they are then released to the managers. From that point, they go into our software, which is called Cassell Connect Online, and there they can be approved. They can go in there and see the invoice, and I'm going to show that process here in just a second. But from there, they can go in there, approve it. If it's something that they want to hold off on, let's just say whatever the invoice is for, if it hasn't materialized yet, or if it's not something that should be released yet, they obviously have the discernment to say, we're going to hold off on that until we receive the product or the whatever the service is, it has been completed. So they have that time frame. They can review all the invoice, and the deadline is by 9 a.m. on Thursdays. From that point, it goes to myself or also Ashley for approval. So the first step is the department heads, and then it moves to myself. And from there, if it's over $1,000, it goes to the city manager, either Charlie or the deputy city manager, Sarah, for approval. And that time frame is on Thursday at 11 a.m. Once those invoices are ready for approval, then if they are checks, they are printed. If they are ACH, which are bank transfers, then we set them up with the bank for ACH. And all that is dispersed once you receive the warrant and it's approved. Here it says, sent to Finance Committee for review and approval. Once we have the signatures required, which warrant signed by 2 committee members and the city manager or the deputy city manager, if it's signed by 2 members and city manager, then we can mail the checks out, send them to the vendors. If not, then we have to request those signatures, and without those signatures, we do not disperse any checks out in the mail. So that's kind of just, I know it's probably elementary, but just gives you a little time frame of how the process works. I do want to show you really quick what managers will see on their end. So on the screen, I'm going to put, let's see. Let me put this on the screen really quick. So this just gives you an example of what the managers will see when they come in. So this is for myself, so I see all the invoices for the week. So right now we have some invoices and you'll see approval step. This means that the department has already approved them. This is the GL that they approved them for. This is the amount, and if I want to go ahead and approve, I can do so. Now, this little document right here shows that I can pull this up. If I click this, I can actually see the invoice. So if I ever question anything, let's just say this, for this one, I believe it was $100. If I want to see what this is for, I can go in, okay, this is for $500, November Bay rental from Superior Docks. I can see it was coded there. And if I have any questions, I can look at the invoice from there. If I'm good with that, I can go ahead and approve that. And once that's approved, like I said, then it's just off to the warrant for you guys to sign off on. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what we see, the process from start to finish. And I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything specific, but I just want you guys to see the process of how it works from start to finish. Like I said, with the new committee members, I know Tabitha is new to the finance committee, but hopefully she can go back and watch this. But is there anyone has any questions for me in regards to the invoice or warrant process?
I will just say that I requested this as a way to, again, we've got new finance committee members. When I came on the finance committee, we kind of, everything was in transition anyways, but I appreciate being able to see the levels of review and the number of approvals that go through to understand what our role is as kind of the final sign-off in it. So I appreciate the outline. Will this be available online?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
great.
Yeah, we'll make that available online. And just to clarify, I know it was written on the agenda, we don't have a warrant this week because of Thanksgiving, which I think we're all aware of that. We will have a warrant for upcoming Monday meetings. We'll also send it out digital as well, so you have the weekend to review. I know everyone's got tough schedules, but that way, when they come in Monday morning, whether they had a chance to look at it online or not, that way they have the invoices in front of them and can look at that, which I know, Steve, that you had requested, which I'm all for. And like I said, that's the goal moving forward.
Thank you.
If I may, I asked to be an alternate so that the new people could come on.
Yes.
And last time, I jumped ahead and I signed the warrant because I felt like it was easier than bringing the new people up to speed, but I will not. I will not be doing that going forward once they understand the whole process. But I didn't think it was fair to hold up anything, and I just signed it. I will not sign it unless I'm requested to going forward, now that you've explained the whole process. And the management piece that you mentioned is not available to counselors, correct? Or is it? The
do you mean,
demonstration you just did.
No, but we could probably get you guys a login if you wanted. I'd be happy to have
We
you.
used to originally, in the old system, it was very clunky, but counselors could go in and see a scanned invoice, okay?
Just so you know, that option is available still. In fact, we did give it out to the city council last year. I can confirm that the username and password, and once I get that confirmation from IT, I will send that out to the new council, but you should have that capability to go in there and see invoices scanned as well.
I like paper copies, but I think a lot of
Yeah.
people prefer the scanned, just so that everyone understands what you just demonstrated is available to them. The way you said it, I thought perhaps it was only administrators.
No, no, and maybe Nate, this is kind of an edit here, we can send out to council, just, if
might
you'd
be
like some
handy.
read-only access, to ping you just for the process for that, and maybe we, at a future finance committee meeting, maybe we just take you through that process too, so a quick training on just, hey, if you want to go online, see the invoices, check out the warrant, here's how to do it. And also for the community too, like these are all public pieces, I think, I know earlier in the conversation you talked about trying to get salaries, you had to ask requests directly as a city councilor, like one of the things, when I applied for this job and I was trying to do a competitive pay analysis, I tried to look up salaries for the city of Ellsworth, and the city manager's salary was not available. And I found out for multiple years that they weren't putting it online. You can see in 2019 and 2020, they were putting these things online, and but for the last 2 years as city manager, we've published that every year as part of the budget process online. We do our annual report, we'll have all that in there. So we want to be as transparent with our finances as possible. It's the people's money, and they deserve to be able to look at every single dollar and have it be public and accessible and easy. That's one of the big thrusts, I think, that Nate and also IT Nate, they're reunited, as we say, when they work together. They've really tried to put in processes so it's not, you don't have to come into City Hall and request something. You can see most of our stuff online pretty easily.
And as I mentioned previously, especially Pat, just so you're aware, like, always reach out to me if you have any questions, email, over the weekend. I'll do my best to respond as soon as possible, but, like I said, that's why we have the transparency. If you question anything, just let me know, and I'll send it. Like I said, I'll answer as soon as I can.
Cool.
Sure, not a problem. I'm just giving everybody a break.
Gotta rest up.
Yeah, I know how turkey affects people.
No, thank you for all that, and thank
Yeah.
you for the people who
Yeah.
prepared this, appreciate it. Anything else? We've run through the agenda, questions, comments, additional items. Mr. Williams, do you have any thoughts? Appreciate you being here. All right,
Great.
we are adjourned, thank you.
Thank you.